There's no doubt we live in a highly anxious culture. With over 40 million adults in the United States struggling, anxiety is the most common mental health diagnosis in America. However, there are millions of people every day that are struggling through life but have no idea why or how to overcome it. Anxiety can be tricky to detect, and it presents differently in each person, and let me guarantee you, everyone struggles with anxiety. So let's jump in and discover why we experience anxiety, and what we can do to overcome it. My name is Laura Howe, founder of Hope Made Strong. We equip you and your ministry team as you support and care for others in your community. Have you ever wondered why we experience anxiety? I think this is a legitimate question because anxiety doesn't seem to help anything. It doesn't appear to benefit us in any way. So why do we experience anxiety at all? Now, I'm going to leave the theological aspect of this question to the theologians, but from a mental health perspective, there's an actual logical explanation. Our brains react the same to a real or imagined threat. Our bodies respond to anxiety the same way it responds to an actual physical threat or danger. When we're experiencing anxiety, we can be safe in our homes, but our mind and body reacts as if there's an actual threat ready to harm us. Many have experienced the confusing feeling that they're in danger, but knowing they're safe at home or lying in bed trying to sleep. I'm sure you're familiar with the fight, flight, or freeze response when we're in danger, and our bodies react to anxiety the same way. A few weeks ago, I was driving in traffic and a car almost sideswiped me. Within an instant, I was tense, hyper-focused, alert, and ready to act. This is fight mode, and we can experience similar reactions with anxiety. Our muscles are tense. Our thoughts are focused on the threat or the problem. We're feeling alert and unable to rest or sleep and feeling jumpy. Flight mode is when we run from the threat. You do as much as you can to put space between you and the danger, and you do it fast. This can be seen in hoarding or control tendencies that people have. They create as much buffer between themselves and the threat as possible. This is their way of coping with the anxiety that they're experiencing. If you freeze when threatened, you become paralyzed. You can feel stuck, unable to make a decision. You experience brain fog, and your mind is racing trying to process the threat. So the anxiety response is your body's natural reaction to feeling threatened. The trouble is, with anxiety, it's often a perceived threat or worry. It's not an actual situation that is going to imminently cause you any harm. Here are 3 tips to overcome anxiety and get you out of that cycle of flight, fight, and freeze. Here's the first tip. It's called a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise. This exercise tells our minds that we're not in immediate danger, so the anxiety response can decrease. This is actually a really helpful tool when their kids are struggling with anxiety because it calms the child who's escalating without them even realizing it. And you don't have to say, calm down, because we know that does not work at all. So here are the 5 steps. Acknowledge 5 things you see around you. It could be a pen or a spot on the ceiling, anything in your surroundings, really. 4, acknowledge 4 things that you can touch. Number 3, acknowledge 3 things that you can hear. Number 2, acknowledge 2 things you can smell. And number 1, find 1 thing that you can taste. Now this could be, gum or coffee, or maybe the sandwich from lunch. Your brain is tricked by focusing on the things around you. You're preoccupied with identifying the senses rather than the perceived threat. In just a few moments, what was once panic is now awareness that you're in a safe environment and your mind and body begin to calm. The second tip is to decrease stimulus. There's a lot of information coming at you and your mind is on overload processing it all. When you're experiencing anxiety, the part of your brain that perceives the threat becomes sensitive or excited. It's working on overdrive, trying to alert you to any potential threat. And we can mistakenly perceive something as a threat when it actually really isn't. Do you find that you get hurt or offended more easily when you're anxious? Well, me too. That's our body trying to keep us safe. Being extra careful perceiving the threats everywhere we go. But most of the time, these threats are not real. By decreasing the stimulus, we give our mind time to calm so it's triggered less easily. Going for a walk, sitting in a quiet room, or having a long bath. Turn off the news, music, or TV. Really, it's just lowering the stimulus so your mind can have time to calm. Now, the third and final tip is staying connected. We need relationships, but in times of crisis, it can be difficult to find ways to connect, especially for those who are living alone. I encourage you, when you aren't able to connect physically with other people, use technology. There are a ton of free apps that allow you to engage and even strengthen relationships. Feeling alone and isolated only compounds fear and anxiety. Be creative, but know that staying connected to other supportive friends and family is a human need and builds resilience. As believers in Christ, we know that God's will for our lives is to live in peace and health. In the show notes below, I've provided a downloadable list of scriptures on peace, rest, and calm. Write these scriptures out and post them in your home where you can see them often. Be strengthened by the hope that God offers us in His promises to keep us and to care for us. Okay, take care.